It started with a look. That's how these things always start, not with some big dramatic explosion or a loud confession, but with something so small you barely notice it until it crawls under your skin and stays there. Just a look. A simple glance that could have meant nothing. Except it did. We were back at the old campus for a reunion weekend. Melody and I had both gone to Mason Pines College, a place tucked in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by tall oaks and traditions that hadn't changed in decades. It had been 10 years since we graduated, and though neither of us was the nostalgic type, we decided to make the trip for old time's sake. At least, that was the plan. I drove us in my rust-red Ford F-150, the one I'd had since sophomore year. Melody said it made her feel young again. She had her feet up on the dash the whole way, humming along to the radio, snapping pictures of cows we passed and the way the sun painted the fields gold. She wore an old Mason Pines hoodie that still fits snug on her figure, and every now and then, she looked over at me with a grin that used to melt me. We checked into a small motel just off campus. It smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet, but we didn't mind. We were here to relive memories, not chase luxury. We changed and headed over to the main quad where alumni were already mingling under string lights, paper lanterns swaying in the early evening breeze. It felt good at first. Familiar. There were laughs, handshakes, and beers cracked open with ease. Melody was radiant that night. Her brown hair was tied up in a loose bun, a few strands framing her face. She had on those jeans that hugged her hips, boots that clicked just right on the concrete, and a smile that drew attention even when she wasn't trying. That's when I saw it. That look. She froze for a second, eyes locking onto someone across the lawn. Her lips parted ever so slightly, and she tilted her head the way she did when something fascinated her. I followed her gaze. He was standing near the beer tent, tall and broad, arms crossed over his chest like he owned the place. He had on a tight black shirt that clung to his torso, and his jeans looked like they hadn't been washed in days. Tattoos peeked out from under his sleeves, curling up his arms like smoke. I didn't recognize him. But Melody? She stared like she knew him. Or wanted to. "Who's that?" she asked, her voice lower, almost to herself. "No idea," I replied, trying to keep it casual. "Maybe someone from our year." She didn't respond. Just kept watching. Then she laughed to herself, barely audible, and sipped her drink like it had suddenly turned interesting. I should have said something. Maybe then things would have turned out different. But hindsight's a cruel teacher. I told myself it was nothing. A harmless glance. A fading moment. But it wasn't. That night, back at the motel, she was different. She jumped me like we were college kids again, wild, fast, desperate. She clawed at my shirt, kissed like she needed it to breathe. I wasn't used to that side of her anymore. Not since the early days. When it was over, she lay beside me, catching her breath, a half-smile on her lips. "Wow," I said, brushing hair from her face. "I don't know what got into you." She didn't answer at first. Just stared at the ceiling. Then she said, "Just felt like it." But I saw the flicker in her eyes. That faraway look. Like her body was here with me, but her mind was somewhere else. With someone else. The next morning, she was all smiles again. Giggling at breakfast, feeding me bites of waffle, snapping selfies of us on campus like everything was perfect. But underneath it all, I felt a shift. Something had cracked. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just excited to be back. Maybe it was all just in my head. But then, a few days later, I caught her texting someone. It was in the kitchen. I walked in to grab a soda, and she was sitting at the counter, phone in hand, face lit up by the screen. She didn't notice me at first. Her thumbs flew across the glass like they were dancing. When she saw me, she jumped slightly and tilted her phone just enough so I couldn't see it. Just a small move. Almost natural. Almost. Who you texting? I asked casually. Oh, just Lauren. She's thinking about coming to visit. I nodded, even smiled. But I didn't believe her. That night, she fell asleep early, curled up on the couch. I waited until her breathing steadied and the room went still. Then I took her phone. I didn't want to be that guy. I never believed in snooping. But something inside me was clawing to the surface, a storm of suspicion and hurt. The messages were under a name I didn't recognize, Trent. I opened the thread. You looked so good the other night. Wish I could have pulled you aside. Remember what we used to talk about? You, me, and that dorm bed? Bet your husband wouldn't last a minute with me. My chest tightened. I felt like the floor was tilting. The messages weren't explicit, not yet. But they didn't need to be. The intent was clear. The tone, unmistakable. Flirty. Dangerous. Familiar. I put the phone back exactly where it was and stared at the ceiling until morning. The next day, I couldn't look at her the same. Her smile felt fake. Her touch, hollow. Every laugh, every "I love you," felt rehearsed. I needed to know who Trent was. So I dug. And what I found, well, that's where the real story begins. It took me 2 hours of online searching to figure out who Trent was. Turns out he never actually graduated from Mason Pines. Dropped out junior year after getting charged with assault. I dug through some old campus records, found a news article buried in the college's online archive. He beat up a freshman girl at a house party. Broke her nose, blackened both her eyes. No one really talked about it much back then, but the campus newspaper ran a quiet little story about it under the fold. Disciplinary action considered in assault case. That was the headline. Soft. Way too soft. But the picture. I recognized him right away. Same thick arms, same stone face, same tribal ink snaking down his biceps. That was him. Trent Caldwell. The man my wife had been texting. I stared at that article for a long time, a pit forming in my gut. That's the kind of guy she wanted? A guy who brutalized a girl half his size? Who walked around campus like a storm cloud, flexing his rage like it made him interesting? I thought about Melody, my Melody, laughing with her hand on her stomach, dancing barefoot in our kitchen, painting her toenails on the porch swing. And now, texting him. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. To punch something. But I didn't. I just sat there in the dark, heart pounding, mind racing. Why? That's what I kept asking myself. Why him? What was it about that kind of man that got her heart racing? Because I knew I wasn't like that. I never had been. I wasn't the guy who slammed doors or snapped necks with his bare hands. I was the guy who made her tea when her cramps got bad, who held her when she cried during sad movies. The guy who brought her flowers on Wednesdays just because. But maybe that wasn't what she wanted anymore. Maybe she wanted danger. Later that week, I confronted her. I didn't show her the texts. I didn't mention the article. I just asked her straight. Do you still love me? She blinked at me, caught off guard. Of course I do. What kind of question is that? Just answer it. Really? Do you still love me? Or are you in love with someone else? She hesitated. And in that hesitation, I felt the air go out of the room. Is there someone else, Mel? She looked down. And then she whispered, I didn't mean for it to happen. That was all I needed to hear. I walked out of the room, slow and calm, but inside I was a fireball. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. That wasn't my style. But revenge could be. After she admitted it, after Melody looked at me with teary eyes and said those 6 words, I didn't mean for it to happen, something inside me split clean down the middle. I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask for details. I just walked into the garage and sat in the dark, listening to the slow, rhythmic ticking of the water heater. For a long time, I did nothing but breathe. She went upstairs and closed the door behind her. Maybe she cried. Maybe she called him. I didn't know. I didn't ask. It's a strange thing, betrayal. You think you'll feel rage, grief, maybe even a desire to beg. But all I felt was still. Hollow. Like the world had been emptied of sound and I was the last man left in it. I slept on the couch that night. And the next. By the 3rd day, I was done wallowing. That's when I started planning. I knew I wasn't the kind of man she fantasized about. I wasn't tough, wasn't mean, didn't have tattoos or a criminal record. But I was clever. Careful. Patient. And that would be enough. The first thing I did was track him down. I remembered from the reunion he mentioned working at a gym in town. It didn't take long to find it, Steelworks Fitness, down on Eastman Avenue. They had a picture of him on the website, arms crossed, fake smile, promoting his personal training services. Transform yourself, the tagline read. I nearly gagged. I signed up for a trial session using a fake name, Jason Blair. Paid cash. Showed up one Tuesday morning in a hoodie and joggers, sunglasses on. He didn't recognize me. That alone told me everything I needed to know about the man. He didn't even remember my face from the reunion. Didn't care. That was the kind of predator he was, opportunistic, blind to the trail of wreckage he left behind. Leg day? He asked, clapping his hands. Sure, I said. Let's do it. I let him train me. I acted like I was impressed, like I wanted to be just like him. He bought it. Told me about his methods, his nutrition, his no-excuses lifestyle. I nodded along, took notes, asked questions. Every time he turned around, I watched how he moved, how he talked to the women in the gym. Always close. Always smiling just a little too wide. After our 3rd session, I asked about personal coaching. You serious? He asked. As a heart attack. He grinned. Alright, Blair. I can work with you. That's how I got into his life. Slowly. Carefully. I learned everything. Where he lived. What time he left for work. What protein powder he used. I found out he had a second phone he used for fun, hidden under a false name on his bill. I followed him a few times, took pictures. Watched as he met women in cheap bars and gave them the same fake smile he gave Melody. She still didn't know I knew. She still texted him, thinking I was blind. But I wasn't. I was wide awake now. Back home, I played the part of the wounded husband. Quiet. Distant. She noticed, of course, but said nothing. Maybe she thought I was grieving and would get over it. Maybe she hoped I wouldn't ask questions. But I had questions. Big ones. And soon, I'd have answers. Late one night, I borrowed her phone again. She'd gotten lazy, stopped deleting the messages. That was her mistake. Trent, you were incredible last time. Can't stop thinking about it. Melody, I want to be your student again. I miss that version of me. Trent, you were always mine, Mel. Always will be. Student. She saw herself as his student. Like he taught her something she craved that I never could. It twisted something sharp in my gut. I took screenshots of everything. Transferred them to a USB drive I hid in my sock drawer. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until the plan was done. The plan was simple, turn them against each other. Destroy what they thought they had. But first, I needed more leverage. So I dug deeper. I found the girl he beat up in college. Her name was Angela Ray. She'd moved out of state, started a foundation for survivors of assault. I reached out through her website using a burner email. Told her I was a concerned acquaintance. Asked if she remembered Trent Caldwell. She responded within the hour. Of course I remember. That bastard ruined my life for years. Why are you asking about him? I told her the truth, or most of it. I said he was still hurting women. That I had someone I cared about caught in his web. Angela didn't hesitate. Let me help. She sent me a signed statement detailing the incident from college, her medical records, the restraining order that was quietly dropped when he agreed to leave school. She gave me permission to use it however I saw fit. I printed it. Added it to the USB drive. Then I went back to the gym and waited for the right moment. It came on a Friday. I was scheduled for a 10 a.m. session. But I showed up at 9:30, slipping into the gym office while he was out back with a client. It wasn't hard to guess his computer password, it was Beast Mode 1. Of course it was. I inserted the USB. Copied everything. Left a folder right on his desktop labeled, "You think you're untouchable?" Inside, I placed the screenshots of his texts with Melody, the statement from Angela, and a note. You like hurting women? Let's see how much you like it when they hurt you back. Then I left. Didn't even finish the workout. That night, I told Melody I knew everything. At first, she tried to deny it. Then she cried. Then she begged. I was just lost, she said. He made me feel things you didn't. Things I thought I needed. I nodded slowly. But you don't need them now? She shook her head, desperate. No. I want us. Please. We can fix this. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, we'll see. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. Trent didn't show up to the gym the next day. Or the day after that. Then the owner put up a sign, now hiring, personal trainer. I smiled. The sign stayed up for a week, bold black letters on white paper taped crooked to the gym window, now hiring, personal trainer. Just like that, Trent was gone. No farewell post, no notice, no goodbye session for his loyal clients. Vanished. I knew why, of course. The folder I'd left on his desktop must have rattled him. Maybe he panicked. Maybe he called Angela. Or maybe, for the first time in his life, he realized he wasn't the only one who could do damage. Back home, Melody pretended things were getting better. She cooked dinner. Watched movies with me. Even laughed once when I made a joke about our terrible couch cushions. But it was all fog. There was a heaviness in her eyes now, like she was always wondering when the other shoe would drop. And that was exactly where I wanted her. I wasn't interested in healing. Not yet. I wanted understanding. Not her version, his. So I called him. Burner phone. Masked number. I waited until I knew Melody was in the shower, water running loud enough to drown a conversation. My thumb hovered for just a second before I pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Hello? His voice was smaller than I remembered. You're not as slick as you thought, are you, Trent? Silence. Then, who is this? You know who. A long exhale. Look, man, if this is about Melody. It's not just about her. It's about Angela. It's about every woman you lied to, used, then left bleeding, metaphorically or otherwise. I don't know what you think you're doing. I think, I said, voice low, I'm making sure the truth catches up to you. One woman at a time. He hung up. I didn't call back. A week later, Angela messaged me again. Said someone claiming to be an investigative reporter reached out, asking about her past with Trent. I knew that meant he was trying to get ahead of the story, maybe twist it into a sob tale. Poor misunderstood alpha male. I asked if she wanted to go public. Her answer was fast. If it helps someone else? Hell yes. So I connected her with a local journalist I trusted, friend of a friend from college, the kind of guy who double-checked every fact before publishing. He wasn't interested in gossip. He wanted patterns. Predators. Stories that meant something. While the story took shape, I turned my attention back to Melody. She was quieter now. Skittish. I noticed her flinch when the doorbell rang or when her phone buzzed unexpectedly. I think she knew, deep down, that Trent wasn't just gone, he was finished. And that I had something to do with it. One night, after dinner, she asked, "Are you ever going to forgive me?" I didn't look up from my plate. "I don't know," I said. She reached across the table, touching my hand lightly. I meant what I said. I want to fix this. I looked her dead in the eye. Then prove it. That weekend, I drove us to a cabin, just the two of us. No phones. No distractions. Just enough food and wine to last us 3 days. I told her it was a chance to reset, start fresh. But I had something else in mind. The first night, we talked. Really talked. She admitted she'd felt invisible for a long time. Said she didn't blame me, but she didn't absolve herself either. I listened, nodding where it made sense, biting my tongue when it didn't. Then I pulled out the printed screenshots. Laid them on the table between us like a deck of cards. "Read them," I said. Out loud. Her eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I need to hear you say them. I need you to hear what you gave away." She cried. But she read them. Every text. Every moan of digital betrayal. Her voice cracked halfway through, and I almost stopped her. Almost. When she finished, I asked one question. "Was it worth it?" "No," she whispered. "Not for a second." I let silence fill the room. Then I got up and tossed the pages into the fireplace. They curled in the flames, blackening, shriveling, finally gone. But her answer stayed with me. That night, we slept in the same bed again. For the first time in weeks, our bodies touched, not with hunger, but with something quieter. A kind of grief. A kind of hope. When we got home, the article dropped. Trainer or predator? One woman's story sparks a deeper look into fitness culture abuse. Angela's name was front and center. So was Trent's. The gym removed all traces of him from their site. And within hours, 3 more women came forward in the comments, claiming similar stories. It spread fast. I didn't tell Melody I helped. She never asked. Maybe she didn't want to know just how deep my revenge had gone. Maybe she suspected. Maybe she respected it. Or maybe she was just grateful I hadn't walked out the door. But I wasn't done yet. Not fully. There was still one last thing left to do. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet in a way that didn't feel haunted. Melody tiptoed around me, doing dishes without a sound, folding laundry like it was a form of prayer. She started wearing her wedding ring again, even though I hadn't touched mine since the night on the couch. She made dinners she thought I liked, pot roast, grilled salmon, even that sad attempt at lasagna she knew she couldn't pull off. I ate what I could, smiled when I remembered, but I wasn't really there. She thought the worst was behind us. That I had let it go. That because Trent vanished from our lives like smoke through a cracked window, the fire was out. But I knew better. The burn was deeper than she could reach. She never asked what happened to him. I don't know if that was guilt or cowardice. Maybe both. But I saw her check her phone sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking. Scrolling through old texts, pausing over his name like a ghost she couldn't summon. She'd blink fast, press the screen, then set it face down. I never said a word. Instead, I got busy. The USB drive didn't just sit in my sock drawer anymore. I bought a small safe from the hardware store and bolted it to the floor of the garage, behind an old shelf of paint cans. Password protected. Hidden from sight. It held more than just screenshots and statements now. I added copies of emails, time-stamped logs of her late-night texts, a photo of them together at a gas station, her arm around him like they were teenagers in heat. Evidence. Truth. Insurance. Not for court. I didn't want to destroy her publicly. No, what I wanted was control. Quiet, lasting control. I wanted her to know what I knew and wonder what I might do with it, for the rest of her life. Because you don't get to burn someone like me and walk away clean. Still, I couldn't ignore the way she tried. She started going to therapy. Said it was about healing, forgiveness, growth. I let her talk. I nodded when she shared quotes from her counselor. Pain is the birthplace of transformation. You can't fix what you won't face. She even bought a journal, scrawling in it every morning like a teenager with a crush on recovery. I didn't laugh. I didn't judge. Honestly, I admired her effort, even if it was too little, too late. One night, after she fell asleep on the couch beside me, I opened her journal. The first page was all guilt. Scribbled lines. Apologies to herself, to me, to the girl I used to be. But deeper in, around page 30, was this. He saw me in a way no one else ever had. Like I was fire, not just warmth. Like I wasn't a wife or a woman, but a storm. God help me, I missed that. I closed the book and stared at the ceiling for an hour. That's when I realized something important. She wasn't ashamed of what she did. She missed it. She missed him. That was the last piece I needed. I wasn't going to scream or throw her out. No, she could stay. Wash my clothes. Fold my socks. Cook for me. We'd be that couple the neighbors smiled at, the ones who got through it. But I'd never be blind again. I printed out that page of her journal and added it to the safe. Then, a week later, I handed her an envelope. She opened it, eyes wide. Inside was a list. Just 4 things. 1. Change your phone number. 2. Quit therapy. 3. Get a new job. 4. Tell your parents the truth. She looked up at me, face pale. What is this? Repentance, I said. You want forgiveness, right? Start there. Her lips trembled. You can't. I cut her off. I can. You burned this house down, Melody. You don't get to rebuild it on your terms. She stared at the list. And if I don't? I smiled. Then I'll rebuild without you. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. And she knew it. Because in the end, tough men don't always shout. Sometimes, they whisper, and still get what they want. Melody walked around the house like a ghost after I told her. Like she was waiting for a final sentence. She still tried to cook, to smile, to touch my arm when I passed, but there was this hollow behind her eyes. And I let it stay hollow. I let her stew in the uncertainty because it was the only power I had left that wasn't soaked in pain. I didn't yell. I didn't pack bags. I just started changing. I joined a boxing gym. Not for the fighting. For the silence. For the sound of fists on bags, for the sweat that didn't feel like regret. I ran until my legs ached and my lungs felt like collapsing. At home, I ate clean, slept early, woke up before dawn. I became disciplined in a way that had nothing to do with her. And all the while, Melody kept looking over her shoulder. One evening, I came home to find her sitting on the porch with a manila envelope in her lap. "What's that?" I asked, not slowing down as I passed her on the way to the door. She stood and followed me inside, holding it out like it was some kind of peace offering. "It's from Trent," she said. Her voice trembled. "He left town. Sent this to me before he did." I didn't take it right away. I stared at it. "You still talking to him?" "No," she said quickly. "Not since that night. I swear." I took the envelope, opened it slowly. Inside were two things, a brief handwritten note and a photograph of him and her, taken from some hidden angle. Maybe I snapped it. Maybe someone else did. His note read, "Melody, I was wrong. You were never mine. I hope he makes you earn your second chance." There was no signature. Just the initials, TC. I tossed the note into the trash. The photo too. Melody stood silently, watching me. "He knows," I said finally. She nodded. "You ruined him, didn't you?" I looked her in the eyes. "No. He ruined himself. I just made sure the mirror was big enough." She didn't speak after that. Just walked away, back to whatever corner of the house she now hid in. Later that night, I checked the USB again, just to be sure it was still safe. It was. I thought about deleting it. Thought about wiping it all away and starting over. But I didn't. Because trust, once burned, doesn't grow back easy. A few days later, Melody asked if I would go to therapy with her. "I want to try," she said. "Even if you're not sure you want me anymore." That honesty hurt more than the betrayal ever did. Because this wasn't a game anymore. This was what came after the fire, after the lies. "I'll go," I said. But inside, I didn't know if I meant it. Not yet. The room smelled like chamomile and wood polish. Too calm for what we brought with us. Melody sat to my left, close but not touching, her hands folded tight in her lap like she was trying to wring the guilt out of her fingers. Across from us, the therapist smiled like she hadn't read the intake form that laid it all bare. "Why are you here?" the therapist asked. Melody looked at me first, some old instinct still twitching, like she needed permission. I didn't give it. I just stared at the gray carpet, letting the silence hang. "I hurt him," Melody said finally. "I cheated. I lied. I broke something I don't know how to fix." She started crying. Not dramatic, not for show. Just quiet tears that slid down like they were tired too. The therapist nodded, turned to me. "And you? Why did you come?" I wanted to say, "Because I'm curious if she'll lie in front of you too." Or maybe, because I still see her face when I close my eyes, and I don't know if it's love or just history. But I didn't. I said what I knew was real. Because I don't want to become someone I hate. That seemed to land. The therapist didn't prod. Just let the silence stretch, let us sit in the wreckage we'd both built. Week after week, we went back. Melody talked more than I did. She talked about her childhood, her parents' cold marriage, the way Trent made her feel powerful and seen, and how that power turned into shame when the lights came back on. She kept trying to explain why. But betrayal doesn't care about why. I listened. Sometimes I spoke. Once, I almost cried, but I clenched my fists and swallowed it back. Men like me, we weren't raised to cry in front of strangers. We were raised to carry, not collapse. Then, on our 6th session, Melody said something that shifted the floor under me. "I think I liked who I was with him because I hated who I'd become with you." It knocked the air out of the room. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. "You mean the man who worked double shifts to get you through nursing school?" The man who sat beside your hospital bed when you miscarried and held your hand even when mine was breaking too? Her face twisted. No. That's not what I meant. I mean, I think I forgot how to feel worthy. And I blamed you for my own emptiness. I stood up. Not to leave. Just to breathe. The therapist didn't stop me. She just said, maybe the old versions of you two are gone. Maybe the work now is deciding who the new ones are. Later that night, Melody sat next to me in bed like we hadn't been divided for months. She didn't try to touch me. She just said, I know you're still waiting for me to mess up again. And I said, no. I'm waiting to see if I'll ever be able to look at you and not see him too. That honesty hung in the dark like smoke. I didn't sleep much. But in the morning, for the first time in months, I made her coffee without bitterness. No sugar, just the way she used to like it before everything turned sweet and sour. She smiled. And I didn't smile back. But I didn't walk away either. It was late October when I stopped pretending I didn't have a plan. Fall had always been my favorite season, but this year, it just looked like dying trees and cold promises. Melody had started humming again around the house, folding towels with more care, checking in on me like we were some Hallmark couple trying to crawl back from the grave. But I knew better. I knew what was coming. She didn't know that I'd been visiting the college. I walked the campus every Thursday, blending in with the alumni and confused parents. I even found the bench where she said she first saw Trent. The one near the sociology building, right next to the sculpture of a faceless man holding a broken clock. The irony was too much. I found Trent too. He didn't recognize me at first, why would he? I was just another plain-faced guy in jeans and a flannel, looking like I missed my 20s. He was still strutting, still wearing that cocky smirk like it was part of his DNA. He had a new girl now, barely legal by the looks of her. She laughed too loud and clung to his arm like she hadn't seen the warning signs yet. She would. Eventually. Part of me wanted to warn her. The other part, the darker, quieter part, thought, let her learn the way Melody did. But revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It doesn't scream or punch or break glass. It whispers. It waits. So I waited. I joined a local fitness class. Melody thought I was trying to rebuild myself, and maybe part of me was. But the truth? I needed to know what it felt like to be strong. Not the emotional kind. The other kind. The kind that could grab a man by the collar and end a conversation before it began. Weeks turned to months, and Melody started believing we were healing. We weren't. I was building a mask, and she loved the new me because she didn't know what was behind it. Then, one rainy Thursday, I followed Trent after his evening class. He always parked in the same lot, always walked alone for a stretch. I watched him pause to check his phone, probably texting the girl. That was when I made my move. I didn't beat him. I didn't even touch him. I just walked up and said, "Remember Melody?" He blinked. What? You should. You ruined her. Or maybe she ruined herself. Either way, I'm the guy cleaning it up. His eyes squinted. Oh, you're... I cut him off. I'm the husband. He started to laugh, then stopped when I pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of the harassment reports the college buried, the ones Melody had told me about when she thought we were being honest again. I handed it to him. You've got until the end of the semester. Resign. Leave town. Or these go to every student newsletter, blog, and board member I can find. He opened the folder. Read. Pale crept into his cheeks. You wouldn't. I would. And I already did. These are just your courtesy copies. I turned and walked away, leaving him with the weight of his own sins. Melody never found out exactly what I did. But she noticed the difference. She asked less about where I went and started looking at me like she didn't know who she married anymore. And that was fine. Because neither did I. When Trent disappeared from campus, no one really questioned it, not out loud. A few students murmured rumors, and some professors speculated about an out-of-state opportunity. But I knew. I knew he left because he was warned. I'd left a final envelope taped to the inside of his apartment door. It wasn't just a set of reports, it was a mirror. A collection of every moment he thought he got away with. Witnesses. Statements. And a few photos no decent man would want floating around. I didn't make threats. I just made it clear that he was a shadow, and shadows disappear. Melody grew more fragile in the following weeks. She couldn't explain why she was sad all the time. Couldn't explain why I didn't smile like I used to. We'd become polite strangers in the same house. The kind that shared dinner, shared a bed, but not a life. She asked me one night, through soft sobs in the kitchen, "Do you still love me?" I looked at her the way someone looks at an old photograph. Warm, but distant. I don't think I know what love is anymore. She nodded like she expected it. Like maybe she'd stopped loving herself, too. That weekend, I took a trip to the cabin in the woods where we'd once spent our second anniversary. I left her a note. No dramatic farewell, just a message: I need a break from pretending. The air at the cabin smelled like pine and old memories. I chopped wood, read a book I never finished years ago, and sat by the fire each night with nothing but the sound of embers for company. I didn't drink. I didn't cry. I just existed, free from the echo of someone else's desire for someone I could never be. After a week, I came back home. Melody had cleaned everything like she was trying to erase her own fingerprints. We talked that night. Really talked. Not like husband and wife, but like two people who used to be in love and didn't want to keep lying. "I thought I wanted someone dangerous," she said. "Someone who wasn't afraid to hurt. But he scared me in the end." "You never did." "I never wanted to scare you," I said quietly. "And maybe that's what I should have wanted." We agreed to take some time apart. Real time. I moved into an apartment above the bookstore downtown. She stayed in the house, though I suspected it felt more like a tomb now. The funny thing is, revenge doesn't fill you. It just empties the rage-shaped hole. What's left is quieter. Sadder. But freer, too. One afternoon, months later, I ran into her at a farmer's market. She smiled, soft and small. Her eyes held history, but not hunger. "Hey," she said. "You look good." "So do you," I said. And I meant it. We chatted about ordinary things. Weather. Books. How the college had made some changes to its faculty policies. We didn't mention Trent. We didn't need to. As I walked away with a bag of fresh apples, I realized I was no longer angry. No longer hurt. Just grateful for the journey, even the broken, twisted, unforgivable parts. Because they led me back to myself.